Yo, what is good, YouTube, and welcome back to another JC2K video. In today's video, I'm going to be teaching y'all how to X-switch on defense. And this may be a term that you've never heard of, or maybe you have heard of it and just don't know how to use it properly. But it's a strategy defensively that a lot of, well, really most competitive players use in their competitive gameplay to help them play better defense, recover, things like that. And it's something that you can use in multiple different situations to fix mismatches, prevent threes off of screens, prevent crabs in the full court when you're playing defense against somebody bringing the ball up the court, things like that. There's lots of different situations in which you can use X switching, and I'm going to teach y'all a few of the situations, the main situations in which you're going to want to use X switching. And it's something that can really help you elevate your game as a player when you're playing 5v5, when you're playing unlimited, when you're playing in a competitive setting, regardless of what you're playing. If you're playing in 5v5, knowing how to X switch and how to use it effectively to help your defense is something that can really help elevate your game a lot if you take advantage of it. But before we hop into the video, if you haven't already, make sure you hit that subscribe button. Help me push towards the 6,000 subscriber mark on the channel. I upload every single day, and I would really appreciate your support if you haven't already, if you do subscribe. Without further ado, we're going to hop right into a Play with Friends game. I actually want to give a massive shout out to my boy Jeremy for hopping into this game with me, helping me demonstrate this to y'all, basically so that y'all can understand what it's like, because this is really the best way that I can think of to do this video, is hopping into a Play with Friends game with one of my boys and having him help me demonstrate how to use this defensively. So we're going to hop into that game, and I'm going to show y'all a few different scenarios, the main scenarios in which you want to use X switching to your defensive benefit. All right, so hopping into this game, y'all are going to see the first thing we're going to talk about in this video is how to X switch a pick and roll. So he's going to come set a screen here with Boban, and the way that you're X switching on Xbox, you're going to hold A. On PlayStation, you're holding X, which is obviously why it's called X switching. So as y'all can see, again, I'm holding A here. He runs a pick and roll. I switch Kawhi onto the ball there because I'm on Xbox. It's A. On PlayStation, it's B. I'm sorry, it's X. But basically, you're going to be switching whoever is guarding the screener onto the ball handler, and vice versa, whoever is guarding the ball handler onto the screener. So I think he's just going to let me score here. So we don't really need, because we're not talking about offense at all in this video. It doesn't really matter, actually, if he gets the ball. It's cool. So we'll go through that again, but in the pick and roll, basically, it's something you want to use to prevent threes off of screens is the main way that I'd put this. As y'all can see, I'm going to switch Yao onto the ball handler here. He does a good job of running around at that time, so that puts him in a situation where he could have potentially gotten to the rim and dunked the ball there, but since he didn't do that, we managed to get ourselves a stop. Just going to shoot a three here. It doesn't really matter, again, on the offensive end of the court, but we'll show that one more time. Basically, you're switching the ball, the guy guarding the ball handler, I can't speak, onto the guy guarding the screener, and vice versa, the guy guarding the screener onto the ball handler, as my CPU fouls for some reason. But that basically, it prevents your opponent from getting threes off of screens and also from being able to take advantage of a pick and roll and pick and pop and hit the slip. One thing to remember on a pick and roll, if I switch Wilt onto the ball handler and it doesn't switch there, which is very annoying, it doesn't always work. Occasionally you'll have like flukes where it doesn't work the way that it's supposed to, which is kind of annoying, but I can't score. He's not letting me score. There we go. I got to it. But sometimes, basically what you want to do is when you switch, after you switch the guy guarding the screener onto the ball handler, you want to click on to, onto the guy who was originally guarding the ball handler, in this case Kawhi, and come down to guard Taco to make it tough for him to score on the inside. He will still score on those types of opportunities relatively often. It's not something you want to do every possession for that matter, because if you X switch every single possession, your opponent's going to get used to it, and he's going to start taking advantage of it and hitting his slip every single possession and taking his twos, because in that situation you're going to be giving up a two most of the time, but it basically prevents your opponent from getting a three off of a screen. If you X switch it, they're not going to be able to take advantage of that and get themselves a three. We'll do it one more time here. I switch here, I click Kawhi onto Boban, and that gives me a chance at a stop on the interior. If he takes advantage of it with a tall player like that, you're going to give up a two most of the time, but that's okay, and that's one situation in which you can use it. And also, if you click onto Kawhi or whoever's guarding the ball handler early enough, you have a really good chance to also get a steal if you just press X and try to guard that slip. So we're going to talk about pick and pop now, and it's very, very similar on the pick and pop. Obviously, you're doing it the same way no matter what scenario you're doing it in, whether you're holding A on Xbox or X on PlayStation. But here, again, I'm X switching the screen, and I'm clicking onto Kawhi. His Boban actually rolled there, so that didn't actually work right, but I'm clicking onto Kawhi again to try to play the pop. Again, clicking on here, and see, that time we played it beautifully, and we don't give up anything right there. That should have been a steal, but the game didn't wind up giving me the steal that I was hoping to get there. But point being, that is exactly how X switching can be super useful, especially against a pick and pop. It's really good against a pick and roll to not give up threes, but against a pick and pop, if your opponent is popping the screen, it's going to make it very hard for them to score, because I can switch Kawhi onto this. It doesn't X switch again, which is kind of annoying. Kawhi just didn't switch, so sometimes it will glitch, like I said. But as y'all can see in a situation like that, again, it gives you the opportunity to basically switch the screen, potentially get a steal, and make it very, very hard for your opponent to score. As with everything in this game, it's not always going to work properly. This game's kind of glitchy. Sometimes they won't X switch. Sometimes you'll drop a steal or won't get a steal that you should be able to get. But things like that, it's just going to make it much easier for you to guard consistently. Against a pick and roll or a pick and pop. See right there, we play the pop perfectly. Yao gets himself an easy steal, and we are able to get out in transition and knock down a 3, which is the way that you're going to be able to use this in real game to turn defense into offense and get yourself transition buckets. So the next thing we're going to talk about, I'm going to let him score here. The next thing we're going to talk about is how to use this in transition, or I guess I should say in the full court when you're playing defense. So I should actually put on a full court press, which I haven't done, which I should probably do. But I'm going to score here again, and then we're going to put on a full court press real quickly and see if we can demonstrate how you use this full court. And the first thing we're going to talk about in the full court press is how to use it against a pick and roll again in a full court. So you're okay, never mind. We'll just talk about this one. See how I X switched? I held A right there, or X on PlayStation. I X switched Chris Webber onto Devin Booker to stop him from being able to get an open look there. That's another way that you can use the X switching very effectively, is just to switch a guy when your defender is out of position into a defensive spot. So here I'm switching Wilt onto the ball handler, so he's not able to get up the court easily. And then I've got Kawhi guarding Boban, making Boban's life hard. He does a good job of passing out of it there and getting himself an open look. But again, it's a long 2, making him work more on the possessions, things like that. So again, I'm going to score here. And then in the full court against a pick and roll, it's very, very effective to basically make it tough for your opponent to move the ball up the court. Same thing here. He's going to call for a screen and roll. We're going to switch Wilt here, and then we're going to click onto Kawhi, click back onto Wilt. Don't give up the crab, step up, make him take a tough shot, and we get ourselves another defensive stop. So it's just providing different looks to the guy that you're playing against, to your opponent, and making things tough for them. Now, the one other way that you can use the pick and roll, or I'm sorry, the X switch in the full court is, say that I'm crabbed right here, like I'm crabbed with Kawhi. I click on to MJ, who in that situation is playing the hash. We did wind up getting stuck there, so he would have had a 3 there if he'd wanted it. But we basically clicked onto the guy who was guarding the hash, which was MJ in that situation, switched him onto the ball handler, and then using Kawhi, go back to guard the guy on the hash, which prevents your opponent from getting a crab 3, getting an open opportunity. And we'll show that one again so y'all can see that again. But if your opponent basically beats the guy who's guarding the ball handler up the court, it gives you a great opportunity to guard against that and prevent your opponent from getting an easy 3-pointer. Because if I get stuck behind the ball handler, then he's able to basically shoot a wide open 3, and he gets a super easy look at the basket no matter what, basically. So that's another very effective way to use this. He's not going to call a pick and roll here, I don't think. But yeah, say Kawhi gets beat. He does still call a pick and roll, but say Kawhi gets beat. Actually wasn't really able to demonstrate it that well in that situation. That's a situation in which you would either probably not want to X switch at all and just continue to play it with your on-ball defender, or X switch it on the pick and roll originally. But in a non-pick and roll situation where your opponent's just trying to beat you up the court and get themselves a crab opportunity, you want to be able to basically X switch. See here, say he beats me up the court, I'm X switching Chris Webber onto the ball handler and then clicking onto Kawhi to recover back to the hash. He greens a really tough shot there, and especially in this year with so many uncontestable releases, sometimes your opponent's just going to green tough shots. Things aren't going to go your way. That's one thing to keep in mind. No matter what, no matter how you're playing defense, you're not going to get a stop every possession, but strategies like this give you an opportunity to get those stops much more often. Same thing here. Say he beats Kawhi up the court, I'm X switching Chris Webber onto D-Book, and then I'm able to recover with Kawhi so that if he throws the ball to the hash, I can still get a contest with Kawhi and be in great defensive positioning. But now he's not able to get himself a crab opportunity up the court and get himself an easy 3, which is how this is so useful. Now, the final thing that I want to talk about in this video is just when you're in a half-court defense. I'm actually just going to go to a man-to-man so you can get the ball up the court easier, except Wilt wants to foul for some reason. When you're in the half court, say you have a mismatch here, like say I put MJ on in the corner. You want to get Chris Webber back onto his matchup. You can X switch off the ball and X switch 2 players here. So I'll X switch MJ back onto Richard Jefferson. I can X switch Chris Webber back onto MJ and recover to the corner. But say you have a mismatch. For example, Yao's not guarding the center, and you want to make sure Yao's guarding Taco Fall. You can X switch the corner, click on, and bring your other defender up to switch that matchup off the ball, and give yourself basically prevent those mismatches. Don't make it easy for your team to have an advantage, for your opponent to have an advantage. Same thing here. If he'll call a pick and roll here, I'm going to show how you can X switch off the ball. See, I'll X switch this, but then I'm going to X switch Yao down onto the pick and roll, and then I can try to recover out. He does a good job of hitting that pass really early, and sometimes your opponent is going to hit that pass early, and that could have been a really good look. But same thing, I'm X switching this, but then I'm X switching Wilt out the corner, recovering with the corner to MJ. You can click onto another player to cover that corner, but basically, like, that was a really good defensive possession there, what y'all saw. And using the X switch out out the corner to prevent mismatches, clicking onto another player to rotate, to not give up the easy pass, not to give up that easy look. There's just a lot of ways that you can use the X switch to help you recover on defense, prevent mismatches, things like that. See, I'm X switching MJ here so that he can't beat Kawhi off the dribble. And now that MJ's here, we're going to X switch this, sir. Well, we'll X switch this. Why not? And then if you can X switch off ball to prevent mismatches, basically. I'm guarding the corner here, and he's got nothing going. He can run a pick and roll here. But yeah, it's the possession's just, it's not going to go anywhere, basically. If you use the X switch effectively, the majority of your opponent's possessions, unless they are truly an elite offensive player, are really going to struggle against somebody who knows how to use the X switch effectively. And again, one other thing I want to say, you don't want to use this every single possession. If he calls another pick and roll here, maybe you want to try to fight through the pick and roll with Kawhi. You don't have to try to use it every possession. But here I am X switching it, and I'm recovering out with Kawhi because he beat Kawhi off the dribble. So then I was able to X switch Yao onto it, not give up a free dunk, and then set myself up for success on the defensive end still, even though he had himself a mismatch. See, I'm switching Yao back onto the ball, back onto the screener there, so that I have that size. There's just all these different ways that you can use the X switching to prevent mismatches and set yourself up for quality defensive possessions, not just forcing yourself to use it in the pick and pop, or for example, to stop somebody in the half court. I X switch this, I get Kawhi over here, he calls a pick and roll, I X switch this, I X switch Wilt onto the screener, so now Wilt's in great defensive position against Taco because he's much taller than Kawhi and is going to do a much better job of playing defense against that situation. So as y'all can see, we're just taking advantage of X switches and giving ourselves opportunities consistently to get stops. You're not going to get stops every possession, but if you use it properly, you're going to get yourself a ton more stops than if you don't know how to use X switching. So that is basically all I wanted to show y'all in today's video. Again, I really appreciate my boy Jeremy for helping me out with this video, and hopefully this video does help y'all out defensively and give y'all the ability to get more stops in the game. So hopefully y'all did enjoy the video. If you did, make sure you hit that like button, leave a comment, and subscribe. I'll be back with more 2K content very, very soon, and I appreciate y'all. Peace.